management and staff of the Mermaid Hotel, the management and staff of the N.I.S, the director of the N.I.S, Mr. Dorset Cromwell, Deputy Director, Ms. Cindy Ann St. Bernard, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carriacou edition of our stakeholder consultation meetings, where we will be discussing the 13th actuarial review, parametric reforms, the new unemployment benefit, and the revamped self-employed regulations. Before we start this evening's proceedings, we'd like to call on Ms. Curleen St. Bernard to do the opening prayer, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us all stand in reverence to God. Almighty God, as we come before you this afternoon, Lord, we thank you. We bless your holy name. Oh God, take charge of this proceeding this afternoon. Guide the presenters, guide their thoughts, give them clarity of thought. In our Son's precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. St. Bernard. I would now like to invite our HR manager, Ms. Asha James, for some welcome remarks.
Mr. Dorset Cromwell, Director of the N.I.S, Ms. Cindy Ann St. Bernard, Deputy Director, management and staff of Mermaid Hotel, specially invited guests, welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Asha James, and I am pleased to be standing here with you, with my team, welcoming you here in person and those viewing virtually. A warm welcome to each and every one of you. The National Insurance Board, your social security organization, has proudly served you for many years. In fact, this year we celebrated 40 years of existence. This is a journey that we are extremely proud of, one in which we have consistently been able to provide financial support to our contributors in times of need. This could not be accomplished without prudent, innovative, and sound management of the fund. It is on the back of this undoubted experience and stellar history that we are here this evening confidently discussing the proposed changes which will ensure the continued existence of the board, allowing us the ability to serve you and the future generation for years to come. Today, we are very excited to be engaging with you, our valuable stakeholders, in discussions surrounding the results of the actuarial reviews, the new unemployment benefits, and the revamp of the self-employed regulations. It is our hope that through fruitful discourse, you will have a clear understanding of these parametric reforms and therefore the need for necessary change. Welcome once again, and we look forward to your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. James. Just some housekeeping items. Can everyone please put their phone on silent or vibrate during the presentations? And can we hold all questions until the end of the presentation, please? I would now like to invite Ms. Lisa Douglas to the stage, who will be giving us a presentation on parametric reforms and unemployment benefit.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very, very much for coming out, and we look forward to some lively interaction this evening. My name is Lisa Douglas, the Public Relations Officer, and this afternoon, our agenda is as follows. We would look at our history of parametric reform, and changes and its impact. We would look at our 11th actuarial review. We would also look at what is happening in the region with other social security institutions. We would look at some liquidity concerns that we do have, the 13th actuarial review, some important reform measures, and then we would wrap up. And at the end of it, we will take your questions. Along with that, we are also going to look at our new unemployment benefits and our new and improved self-employed regulations. So let's start today with reform. Let's start today with retirement. And I know all of us are looking forward to the time when we can wake up in the morning and we can just relax, right? But if you look here at this handsome gentleman, he at one point would have felt that way too. Look, I'm looking forward to this, but this is how his retirement is actually looking. And I don't think any of us in here want our retirement to look this sad. This makes you feel very, very depressed, right? And we don't want that to happen. So that's why today we are saying, in order for this not to occur to any of us in Grenada, we have to start waking up, paying attention, and taking the recommendations from our actuarial reviews seriously. And taking them seriously means that we need to implement them. So every 3 years, the National Insurance Scheme is required by law to conduct an actuarial review. When the actuarial review is conducted, the actuary would present a document to the government of Grenada containing a report on all their findings, their recommendations, etc. And coming out of that review, the actuary's recommendations, once it is taken on board by the government, is supposed to be passed in order to ensure that, one, the benefits that the N.I.S. provides remain relevant, it is meeting our needs, and two, that the N.I.S. fund remains sustainable. Because in order to pay benefits, there must be a sustainable fund for us to continue to draw from. But look at what has happened since 2002 in terms of implementing our actuarial recommendations. So in 2002, the 7th review was done. And coming out of that review, the actuary made a recommendation, among others, but one of the most impactful recommendations he made at that point was to increase the retirement age gradually from 60 to 65 over a period of 15 years. Now, this is so because of how our social security funds are designed. We have a defined benefit fund, and if you want more information on these things after that, we can go into detail and definitions right here. We could always do that. And just like Grenada, all of the countries in the region, they too have defined benefit funds. And when those funds reach the stage of maturity, usually around 35 to 40 years, they reach to a point where you have to make changes in order to remain sustainable. So one of the changes, as I said, the actuary's been making is gradually increasing the pension age. And it's not just Grenada. You'd realize that around that same time, Barbados started to gradually increase their age. And not from 60 to 65, but 60 to 67. All right? St. Lucia, likewise, also had that recommendation from their actuary, and they started to gradually increase their age from 60 to 65. Now, going back to Grenada, from the 8th actuarial review in 2006, the actuary made again, you realize the same recommendation is being repeated, gradually increase the retirement age, this time over a 9 to 12 year period. But nothing was done. So the 7 passed, the 8 passed. Let's get to the 9th and 10th. You'd realize in those 2 reviews that the same recommendation reoccurred. Increased the pensionable age from 60 to 65 over a 16-year period. And again, it was not implemented. In addition to that, coming out of the 9th and 10th review, the actuary said, listen, in addition to gradually increasing the age, you need to also increase the contribution rate by 2% in 2015. Now, of course, that wasn't done either. And this is very important here. The actuary pointed out in all of these reviews that further increases must be considered. Because remember, we have some funds that are not static. Yeah, demographics are changing, meaning women are having less children, right? We're living longer, whether or not we say, look at the death news, yeah? Whether or not we say that, the fact is persons are living longer, women are having less children. We also have other factors that affect persons coming into the workforce and their ability to pay, things like migration, because who migrates? Young people. When you reach retirement age, you want to go back home and relax, right? But it's our young people, persons who are supposed to be contributing so that our pensioners could benefit. They are the ones who are migrating, so they're not here to contribute. Then we have low productivity. Sometimes we don't think about it. But if we need to hire 3 persons to do a job that 1 person could do, low productivity also affects that. Now let's go on to the 11th review. You'd realize in 2015, the actuary again made that recommendation with another recommendation, well, the same recommendation right now, to increase the contribution rate by 2% in 2018, because it wasn't done when it was recommended for 2015. Of course, it wasn't done. The 12th review, again in 2018, was the same as the 11th review. And even though actuaries changed, the recommendations did not. So we could say we had fresh eyes looking at the data, looking at the figures, but they came up with the same recommendations. N.I.S. Grenada, in order to save your social security institution, you must make changes. And in addition to that, coming out of the 12th review in 2018, the actuary recommended a 2.6% increase in the contribution rate. Of course, we know it was not in 2020 increased by 2.6%. Yeah? So let's move on to see what we have actually done in terms of changes, because we have made some changes. It's not like we haven't changed anything at all. So here's what we have changed. In 1994 and in 1997, we increased pensions. So for all pensioners, depending on when it was first awarded, pensioners received increases between 5% to a maximum of 35%. We increased pensions. In 1997, again, pensioners received another increase, 8%. In 2006, again, pensions were increased between 2% to 16%. So we have increased some parameters, some factors. But guess what? We have only increased those things that we think, well, would be popular to persons. Yeah? The things that we decide, okay, I'm going to change this because I think, people will be, okay with getting a bit more money. But when it comes to the core, the sustainability of the fund, those things that we need to change to make sure that not just here and now we're taking care of, but us when we reach our pension age, our children, our children's children, because it's very important to remember that it's not just for here and now. The other thing we've changed is the contribution ceiling. The insurable earning ceiling, that is the maximum salary on which N.I.S. is paid. You'd realize in 95, from 83 to 95, we were at $1,250, and then from 95, it started increasing. And the last increase took place in January 2014, where currently the insurable earning ceiling capped off at $5,000. So that's what it's currently. Now, when the ceiling increases, of course, persons pay a bit more, so N.I.S. would collect a bit more. But guess what? In the long run, it's really a benefit to the contributor, because it means your benefits now are higher. Because if we have a ceiling of $1,250 compared to $5,000, you would understand what that does, not just for your pension, but for your short-term benefits also. So those are the changes we have decided to cherry pick here and cherry pick there and introduce only those that we think would be popular, but the real changes we have done absolutely nothing. Now let's look at the 11th review in a bit more detail. Now coming out of the 11th review, this is what the actuary stated. Starting in 2016, annual contributions will be insufficient to meet total expenditure. So annual contributions, meaning what we collect from employers, employees, self-employed persons, would not be enough to meet total expenditure. Investment income will then have to cover the shortfall. The N.I.S. has two sources of income, contributions and investments, right? So contributions can cover it, so we have to use the returns we're getting on investments now to cover the shortfall. And obviously, if the returns we're getting on investments are not going into the reserves, would the reserves grow? No, the reserves would start to decrease because it means we start living above our means. We no longer putting money in the bank. We're living above our means. And starting in 2022, total income now. So when we combine what we collect from contributions plus what our investment department would have worked really hard to make sure we get some returns, both of them together would not be able to cover total expenses. So guess what we have to do in that time? That time we're not putting less money in the bank. What we're doing, we actually have to go and take out money in order to cover total expenditure. So what would happen to the reserves at that point? It would stop growing and it would start decreasing. And if we continue like that, the actuary said in 2035, the reserves would drop to zero. Because you know, sometimes you have a big account, you have some money, looks nice, but every month you're dipping into it, eventually it would drop to zero. And at that point, once it drops to zero, the contribution rate, just to meet day-to-day expenses, to pay benefits and so automatically would have to move to 22.5%. Remember, this is just the 11th review. We're right up to the 13th review already. So that was back then. This is what the actuary said. And guess what? Just as the actuary said it would happen, it actually happened. And I would show you the figures just now. Now I have a very interesting graph here. And it looks fancy. The title says Reserve Expenditure Ratio. What it simply means is that if at this point right here, right now, the N.I.S. decides I am no longer going to collect more contributions, I'm going to honor the beneficiaries that I have to honor right now, I'm no longer going to do any more investments, how long could the organization survive in terms of paying benefits and operating? And in 1987, that ratio was at 25.2 years. But look what has happened over time. And you could see it's going down. So it means the number of years we are able to survive is decreasing. And in 2021, it was down to 8 years. From 25.2 in 1987 down to 8 years in 2021. So that tells us that N.I.S., in order to remain relevant, we need to pay attention to what's happening. Let me give you another picture. This picture here shows you benefits paid in 2021. And the total figure at the bottom here is sort of light, but it says $115.4 million. So in 2021, N.I.S. paid Grenadians $115.4 million. Yeah? Sometimes we like to say, well, N.I.S. not doing anything. But think about it. That's $115 million that would not be circulating in the economy if NIS wasn't able to pay benefits. But let's take a closer look of the entire picture. Now, contribution income in that year was $96 million. Yeah? Age pension alone, if you look at the top here, was $86 million. So we collected 96, just age pension was 86. So you'd realize just paying your age pensioners alone, so not your invalidity pensioners, look them right here, not your survivors pensioners, yes, just your age pensioners, and that didn't even include our age grant, just the pensions. And if we were to look at a second benefit in that same year, sickness benefit, it was $10.6 million. So if we add what we paid in age benefit and sickness benefit, what we collected in contributions, it was used up just for those two benefits. So we have to realize that, listen, NIS, no, something have to be fixed because this is not a sustainable way to operate. And if any of us here are in business and we're operating like that, we know very soon there will be no business, right? Another picture I want to show you. And it shows the benchmark, the percentage when, in terms of our administrative expenses that the National Insurance Law says, listen to me, you have to make sure you're operating efficiently. Because sometimes we might say, well, maybe NIS not managing the fund properly. So maybe it's a matter where the fund is not prudently managed. So maybe that's why this is happening. So look at this. When it comes to administrative expenses, the law says that you should not go over 12%. So that's the benchmark. So this is this green line here. So your administrative expenses should never pass above this green line, right? But look at where we have been operating. So the yellow line shows you where our administrative expenses are. Now in 2012, we were at 6%. And since then, you'd realize that our admin expenses, although everything else is going up, it is actually going down. So you could tell from that line, we have been managing the fund prudently. In fact, we have set our own internal benchmark. So although the law gave us 12%, we say, no, we're cutting that in half. So we have set our own target for ourselves. We were like, we don't want admin expense to ever cross 6%. And in 2021, it was 4.4%. 4.4. Benchmark of 12, internal benchmark of 6, and in 2021, it was 4.4%. So you'd realize that in terms of administration, the NIS have been managing the fund very prudently. So what is causing all this? Let's see what's happening with our regional brothers and sisters so we can kind of gauge whether or not it's just here at home in Grenada that we have issues with our social security organization. Now in Dominica, they have the same type of fund, and guess what? They have the same issue. As you reach maturity, you have to make changes. But guess what Dominica did? Dominica decided that, you know what, we have to change in order to remain sustainable, so let's change. So currently, their retirement age went from 60, and it is now at 65. In addition to that, Dominica also had to increase their contribution rate because in most cases, one action is not enough. It doesn't have a great enough impact, to ensure your sustainability. So Dominica's contribution rate, as at to date, is 13.75%, and every year it has been increasing by 0.5%. So by the year 2031, their rate would be 15.75%. And we know when things are done early enough and done in small increments, it is easier to manage. And that's part of the reason why N.I.S. Grenada and Grenada need to decide, listen to me, when these changes need to be made, I need to make it in a timely manner so that later on I don't have to make drastic changes. Let's look at what's happening in Antigua. Is it just Grenada and Dominica? In Antigua, currently, the pension age is 64. So Antigua has started to increase. But guess what? Antigua waited very, very late. So although they're increasing now, their fund is in a lot of trouble. And if you go onto their Facebook page, you would see. Now, in addition to the increase in the retirement age, Antigua also had to increase their contribution rate. So it's now at 15%, and by 2025, it would be 16%. So that's 2 years from now. In addition to that, they also had to increase the number of contributions required for a pension. So there's a minimum requirement, and we all had similar laws. So they had 500, just like us, but they have been moving. So they are now at 700. So to get an age pension, you must have at least 700 contribution weeks. Yeah? And that is moving to 750 by 2025. And I have this interesting snapshot, a screenshot I took from Antigua's Facebook page, right? Because sometimes when you mention certain things, you might think, well, maybe we're just saying that because we're working in N.I.S. and we're told to say this and that's what we have to say. But guess what? I was going through their Facebook page because I know they didn't implement their recommendations in a timely manner, and they're in some real hot waters because on a daily basis, when persons apply to Antigua for benefits, they do not get those benefits immediately. You have to come back. So there is no guarantee, as we have in Grenada. You put your pot on the fire, the 20th of every month, you know your pension is there. And sometimes people call, since on the 19th, they want to know, it gone to the bank already? Yes, because we're accustomed to that. And N.I.S. cannot dare make the mistake to put it on the 21st. Yes? We know we could put our pot on the fire and have confidence that it goes. But guess what? Antigua doesn't have that same luxury right now. They are trying to get back, but if you read their Facebook page, you will see them saying, okay, I'm letting the person from XYZ Bank and Credit Union know that your monies went in for 2 months ago. Yeah, that's where they are now. Some years ago, it was even worse than that. I took this. It was September 3rd, 2021. It was posted during COVID. And what it's saying here is that they're letting persons know, look, November and September are slow months. We can't pay. We have no monies. We have zero monies. And I want you to go and watch it for yourself. We have no money. So while us in Grenada, we were complaining about our $330. Yeah, we got our $330 per month in an unfunded unemployment benefit from the N.I.S. during COVID. So while we were complaining about our $330, Antigua couldn't even pay regular benefits. Regular benefits that you were entitled to. They could not pay that to their contributors. And it's a very sad situation. And I was sharing an experience I had when I spoke to someone from Antigua. I was there on a training, and the lady was telling me, look, my child was 2 years. She had teeth when I got my maternity benefit. Yes, the child was 2 years old when she got the benefit. It got that bad. It's getting a bit better now. It's still off, so they're still paying 2 months behind and all of that. But it got that bad. And I want us to sit down and think, is that where we want N.I.S. Grenada to reach? Yeah? If any of you here apply for maternity benefits, we promise you in 3-4 days you would get it. If it takes anything longer than that, you're about to scramble us, right? Exactly. So think about it. And we are able to pay over 95% of our short-term claims, our sickness, and so between 2 to 3 days. Yeah, that's our internal control we've set for ourselves. And we're still concerned about the 5%. So the 5% who don't get it in the 2 and 3 days, we want to make sure we get it done. St. Vincent, same thing. N.I.S. St. Vincent, currently the pension age is at 63. So they're increasing. They want to make sure that Vincentians can receive a pension when they reach their golden years. They're also increasing the minimum number of contributions required for a pension. So likewise, again, they had 500, they're at 650 right now. And eventually, by 2028, they will be at 750. We also have the Barbados, who is in a very unique situation. You'd realize the retirement age in Barbados currently is 67 years. And not just they're currently in discussions to increase it. Yeah. So it's 67 now, and it has been 67 for a while. Yeah, so these are old figures. Currently, they're in discussions to increase it from 67. We have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, paying a pension is very expensive. That's why most employers do not have an employer-funded pension for their employees. It is expensive. That's why a lot of governments don't want to get into the pension business, because it is that expensive. In addition to the retirement age being at 67, the contribution rate is 20.25% currently in Barbados. So for the regular NIS benefits, persons contribute 18.25%, and then for unemployment and severance, they contribute another 2%, so that takes us to 20.25%. So you contribute 20.25, you get your pension at 67, but guess what? They're talking about increasing, because they have to increase if they are to remain relevant and sustainable. And it's not just happening on the ground in terms of NIS Barbados, it's happening from the highest level. So Prime Minister Mia Mottley has been highlighting and has been stating and has been admonishing and making a call for all Bajans, letting them know, listen, wake up, we need to do something to fix our NIS. Yes, we're at 67, but that would be nothing compared to if we have no social security at all. And if all of us are honest with ourselves, we would realize that our social security funds, not just in Grenada, but in the region, is the only source of income that most persons depend on when they retire. Some people, that's the only source of income. Some may have others, and we encourage you to have other sources. But for most persons, because even though we say sometimes, don't worry, I'll invest my money for myself, usually doesn't happen. We always find something to do with that money. And then later on, we retire and realize, so if NIS ever missed the 20th, problems. Yeah? On the 20th, we want our money. In December, usually we pay pensions early by the 15th because it's Christmas. I was looking at Antigua's page, and guess what? December's pension for 1 year was paid in February. And I was saying, if I tell a Grenadian they're getting the December pension in February, yes, just look on the page and you would see they're telling you when they could give you the money, not when you are entitled to it, when it is available. Because if there is no money in the fund, there is no money in the fund. They can manufacture it. It must come in. If it's not there, it's not there, right? So we don't want to get there. This here shows our current retirement ages for some of our countries, and another interesting picture. The percentage in terms of the assets these institutions have and how much of the GDP of their country it represents. And look at this. Well, we could see on the side here, straight off the bat, we kind of really lagging behind in terms of increasing our age and making sure our fund is sustainable. Yeah? And sometimes we like to say, so just because they're doing it, we have to do it too. Yeah? But there's a saying, when your neighbor house on fire, wet yours. Yeah? Don't wait until your house catch and say, oh, all you come and help me. Right? So we're lagging behind. We're the only one who is at 60. Everybody else are making the changes to make sure they remain sustainable. In addition to that, look at how important Social Security is. In terms of our assets, look at Anguilla. Their assets represent 36.2% of their country's GDP. And that is very significant. And you can go down the line. Dominica, 26%. Here at home in Grenada, we're almost at 30%. St. Kitts, 59%. St. Lucia, 38%. St. Vincent, 22%. So realize the impact and the significance and the weight that your Social Security fund plays in the life of your country. Then look at this again. This shows some of the recommendations or some of the information that the actuaries from the different countries have produced when they did the actuarial review for that particular country. Remember, it's not just us doing actuarial reviews. Everybody, we have to do it. So in Antigua and Barbuda, their actuary would have stated that, look, Antigua, in 2009, if you do nothing, your expenditure would exceed your contribution income in 2009. And if you continue to do nothing by the next year, that's it. Your expenditure would exceed your total income. So at that point, your reserves would be, in fact, things were so bad in Antigua, by the next year, the reserves would have been depleted based on what was happening. So not that it started to go down, but the next year. Yeah? But of course, they did nothing, and hence the reason they ended up where they are, trying to get back on their feet now. Grenada, we're kind of similar, but before I get to Grenada, let's look at somebody who is trying to see if they could do a better job. St. Lucia. St. Lucia, their actuary would have stated that in 2025, expenditure would start exceeding contribution income. If we compare that to what our actuary said, that was since 2016 for us, and it happened. Yeah? But St. Lucia, of course, started to make their changes earlier. And look at this, by 2035, they would reach to a point where we are right now, yeah, where the expenditure would exceed both contribution and investment income. And for us, our fund would go to zero in 2032. But because St. Lucia would have implemented their recommendations in a timely manner, look at the longevity they currently have, up to the year 2050. So that's what happens when you remain current and up to date and do things in a timely manner. And we have some great liquidity concerns. And liquidity just simply means how cashy you are. Yes? Now, in order to meet our monthly obligations, the National Insurance Board has been forced to break several of its investment instruments before the maturity date. The instruments that have been liquidated thus far are term deposits, as they are easily converted into cash and earn relatively low interest. So this is the picture here. Yeah? So this was the theory, and this is the practical. It simply means that if we continue to do nothing, and what we collect in investments and contributions can pay total expenditure, we have to liquidate assets. So term deposits is the assets that we started to liquidate. And the first time we had to do that was in 2021, where $14.3 million in term deposits were liquidated because we did not have enough monies to pay expenditure. Again, it happened in 2022. $14.45 million in term deposits were liquidated to get cash to pay. And it is projected in 2023, $22.8 million. So you realize it's going up, right? Yeah? It's going up and it's going up and it's going up. So it means the reserves will start to go down and down. As you liquidate, your reserves go down because you're taking out the cash. You're taking out the money. So what do we need to do? We need to act now. And now means no. We can't afford to wait anymore. And we need to act by doing a number of things. Not just the increase in the pension age, but we need to ensure that our contribution ceiling, our insurable earning ceiling remains relevant. We need to make sure our contribution rates, as the actuary has recommended, they are increased. The accrual rates also, and I would explain what that is just now. We have to make sure that our pension calculation is revised. And one of the things that the actuary recommended is that some of these parameters, they are placed in the regulations so that you don't have to wait to go to Parliament to get something passed and tabled in order for it to be passed. If it's put in the law, we know it is predictable. So we know this has to increase now. We know this has to change this year. Everybody knows when it's supposed to happen, and it happens in a very predictable manner. And just before I go to some other matters in terms of what we need to do, I still need to highlight our 13th review. We looked at the 11th before. Now, some of the findings from our 13th review are as follows. The actuary stated, similar to the 11th and the others, totally, if you continue to do nothing, as we have done, total expenditure will exceed total income in all the years, except 2022 and 2023. But we know this actually happened, right? So the actuary said, except in those years, it wouldn't, but we know in 22, we've seen that it exceeded it already. And the fund will be depleted between 2033 and 2035. So automatically, the contribution rate will have to be between 24 to 26% to be able to just pay day-to-day expenses. And at that point, when your reserves are at zero, you have two options. You increase the contribution rate to the 26%, or you wait on special transfers from the government in order to pay benefits. And I want to see a raise of hands here if any of us want to depend on transfers every month from the government so that our benefits, our pensions, which has to go by the 20th of every month, and our sickness and our maternity and our employment injury and our new unemployment benefits and all of that, if any of us prefer those transfers to be made. I think not, right? Good. So it means we need to act now. And for a year and upon year, policymaker after policymaker, our governments have done absolutely nothing to make sure the N.I.S. fund remains sustainable. So we need to act, and we need to act right now. And one of the things that we need to do is to gradually increase the pension age from 60 to 65. And this is what the increase would look like. Starting from next year, 2024, the pensionable age will move to 61. Now, once the pension age moves to 61, you will still have the option if you decide, listen, I don't want to wait for 61. I want my pension now. You can still take it, but You have to remember it will be at a reduced rate. So if next year I decide I'm taking my pension will be calculated, but my pension rate would be reduced by 5%. Yeah? And remember, once you get your pension, you stop contributing. So that's the pension that I would receive going forward. Likewise, in 2025, the pension age would now move to 62. So if I want my pension at 60, I would lose 10%. If I take it at 61, I lose 5%. And all the years are the same until you get to 2028, where it will be 65. But again, if you want it early, you can take it early. So to get a full pension, you would have to wait. You have to delay your pension. But if you want it early, then you would have to take it at a reduced rate. And then going forward, after 2028, 29, you know this would be the reduction factors. If you take it 5 years early, 30%. 4 years early, 24%. In terms of how much your pension would be reduced, 3 years early, 18%, and so on and so forth. Now, if you would be 60 next year, we're really making a special appeal to call us to get personalized information in terms of we would do your pension calculation and let you know how it affects you in real dollars and real cents. So you could now make a decision in terms of, do I want to wait? Do I want to continue to work? The contribution rate also needs to increase. And so far, we've had the 2% increase, but we know it was not for our sustainability. It was for the new benefit that we introduced, and I would look at it just now. But starting from 2024, the rate would increase by 0.5% annually. So every year, every January 1st, the rate would increase by 0.5%. Quarter employee, quarter employer. So next year, we would be increasing to 12.5%, right? So employees would be paying 5.75 because we're paying 5.5 right now. Employees would be paying 6.75 until 2031, where it would get to 16%. Now, another recommendation is to adjust the pension formula. Currently, for the first 10 years, we receive 30% of our best salary and then 1% thereafter. Now, of course, when Social Security institutions are young, you try to front load that rate because you want to make sure persons could get a decent pension. But as your fund ages and reaches maturity and persons can qualify for a pension because we promise up to 60% of your income, then that formula has to be adjusted. So right now, the actuary has recommended that instead of 30% up front, 25%, and then 1% thereafter. Now, also, you need to note, once the pension age starts increasing, persons under the normal retirement age, if you're taking your pension early, there are certain conditions, because it would now be a retirement pension. You have to retire in order to get it. But if you decide, no, I want to continue to work, the only way you could continue to work and you're under the pension age and receive your pension is if you're receiving less than 60% of the ceiling. So the ceiling currently is $5,000, so you have to be receiving less than 60% of $5,000 in order to collect your N.I.S. pension plus work and receive an income. The number of contribution weeks also need to be adjusted, and this is what the schedule looks like. So from 2024, the minimum number of contributions required for a pension would move from 500 to 525. So every year it would move by an additional 25 contribution weeks. All right? So In 2033, it would cap off at 750. So we were at 5, and we would gradually move to 750. And this is a picture of what would happen if we make some of the recommendations, if we implement some of the recommendations. And it's light, but if we decide to cherry pick some more and decide, okay, we'll take this one and that one, maybe not that one, this one and that one, this is what the different mixes would show you. And it would take us just up to 2030 something, which is not far from now. But if we decide to make the bold move and the prudent move to increase and implement everything that we need to ensure our sustainability, it would take us projected up to 2056. But remember, it's ongoing. The actuary is saying you're not doing this and it solves all your problems. Yeah? We continuously have to reassess and make changes as is necessary. And the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank made that statement to our governments in the region. Social security system, so this is not an N.I.S. statement. This is from the governor of the ECCB. Social security systems are in need of reform. Failure to implement these reforms can result in financial instability of the social security systems and instability of the ECCU financial sector. So our strength as a social security institution is not just for us. It's to make sure the EC dollar and what's happening in the region financially that we are proud of can remain sustainable. And as I wrap up this part, I want to encourage us all, and our government has given N.I.S. the assurance that, listen, we know that these changes have to be made. We are going to make these changes. We need to consult to get feedback from persons, but we know we have to make these changes, and we are going to implement these changes, but we must get your feedback. But we need to do so in order to save our N.I.S. So we have to stop, passing the buck from, oh, I don't want to do it, I want my pension age at 60, let the next generation take care of that. And then our children would end up paying 26% and 35% and 40% in terms of N.I.S. contributions. And we do not want that. We have also introduced some new benefits, and we have also revamped our self-employed. So I would look at that, and then we would wrap up. Now, so far, N.I.S. Grenada, on 2 occasions, we paid out an unfunded unemployment benefit after Ivan to help persons who were displaced and during COVID. And the decision was made that, listen, we need something more structured. We need something where even outside of shocks that would affect everybody, sometimes we have individual shocks. Sometimes we lose our job, right? And when persons lose their job, it should not mean that their children can't eat and they can eat. While they're looking for a job, it's important to have something to keep them on their feet. So I would look just now who would be covered. And in terms of our self-employed persons, we have realized that most self-employed persons do not register and contribute. So we've had consultations with them to get their feedback. Tell us, what are we not doing correctly? And they gave us a lot of feedback, and we are happy to announce we have implemented those. So let's look at unemployment first. So what's the definition of someone who is unemployed for this benefit? It is an individual who has lost their job due to no fault of their own and is available for work, but can't find a job. So it's not for persons who decide, I'm just going to be a slacker. Yeah? So you don't have to worry about that. If you're a slacker, you would not be able to qualify for this benefit. So it's a job seeker's benefit. You're looking for work, and while you're looking for work, we're covering you. So who can qualify? All workers, private sector, public sector, statutory bodies, work permit holders, and the self-employed. So everyone in Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique, we all are covered if we lose our jobs due to no fault of our own. And I stress, due to no fault of our own. Because if it's your own fault, you would not qualify either. So what are the qualifying conditions? So you need to have contributed for at least a year to N.I.S, at least 52 contributions, right? Now, although the year has 12 months and most of us pay for 12 times, remember contributions are counted weekly. Yeah, 4 Mondays, 4 weeks, 5 Mondays, 5 weeks. So at the end of the year, 52 contribution weeks, right? Yes. So you have 52 contribution weeks, and you also meet the other required contribution criteria. So we count back the 13 weeks and you have at least 8, and we count back the 26 weeks and you have at least 13, then you can qualify for an unemployment benefit once you meet the other conditions also. So it's payable from the first day you lost your job. But there is a waiting period, yeah, because remember we have to make sure that you're actually unemployed in order to pay you that benefit. Now, the benefit is paid at a rate of 50% of your average income, right, for a period of 3 months. So you see, it's not a slacker's benefit, right? You cannot just sit down and decide, okay, yeah, I'm on unemployment. So it's paid up to a maximum of 3 months. So it's to help you get on your feet, not to keep you at home. So our eligibility, you must be in insurable employment, and you must be under the pension age, right? Now, if the maximum duration of 13 weeks is exhausted and the individual is not, then the individual is not eligible until he has returned to work, meaning you received unemployment benefits for the 3-month period. You can't receive it again until you go back to work for next year. So you can't just be on unemployment, right? You must be ready, willing, and capable of working. So if you decide, I don't want any work, you wouldn't qualify. You must be actively seeking employment. You must not refuse suitable employment. And you may wonder, well, how would N.I.S know that? One of the things that we will establish is a job matching service. You also must complete assigned training, because there are sometimes you may be involved in a particular profession, but work is not available in that area, but it might be the perfect opportunity to upskill or to retool. Yes, so I used to do this, but it's not available. Maybe I could do this instead. So training would be available in other areas that you're capable. If you decide, nah, I don't want it, then you wouldn't be able to qualify for unemployment benefits. Now, you must, in order to continue receiving the benefit after that waiting period, and you receive your first payment every 2 weeks, you must report to the N.I.S. to certify that 1, you're still unemployed, and you have been actively looking for work, and none of these here are true, that you refuse employment and all of that. So you must have to certify. And don't worry, there would be structures in place to ensure that all of these are done, right? Now for employers, so all the employers we have in here and listening online, you are required, when you are letting someone go, you are required to complete a termination certificate. Please, it's now mandated by law. So please, employers, you are required to complete a termination certificate and submit it to the employee and the N.I.S. So make sure you do that. So what would disqualify me? If you voluntarily left your job, if you decide I don't want this work, then you can't claim for unemployment benefits. If you are in prison, you're hospitalized, etc., you wouldn't be able to claim because you're not available and looking for work. If you're dismissed due to misconduct, so if it was theft or whatever misconduct, so if it was your misconduct that caused you to lose your job, you would not qualify. Also, if you fail to make yourself available for employment or you refuse employment without a very, very good cause, then you would also not qualify. And if you decide, N.I.S. is telling me you will train me and retool me and reskill me and upskill me and all of that, but I don't want any of it, this is what I do and that's all I want, then you wouldn't qualify either. In addition to that, it's important to remember that the contribution rate shared equally between the employer and the employee starting May 1st. That covers everyone for the unemployment benefit. The job matching service, we are working to establish that very soon in association with the National Training Agency. Payment for unemployment benefits. Okay, so I covered that already. Now the time frame for claiming unemployment benefits is important to note. All benefits has a time frame. So claiming time so you wouldn't lose 15 days from the date your unemployment started. So you became unemployed today. Within 15 days for today, you need to submit your claim. Once you've been laid off, there are sometimes where you would receive severance or vacation pay or other type of pay. Once you're receiving payment, your unemployment would start after you stop receiving those payments. So if I became unemployed today, but I'm getting vacation pay up to the end of next month, it would start at that point. And you are required, again, employers, I'm reminding you, you are required to submit the termination certificate, but there's a time frame also. Yeah, so you have 7 days. So all employers, 7 days, submit the termination certificate to N.I.S. And that started May 1st, and we are paying claims. We have paid claims already to persons who became unemployed. And finally, we also have a new approach to self-employed contributions. And I know a lot of persons have been asking for it. So now it's here. Now, our previous regulations had some shortcomings. Self-employed persons were treated and expected to operate just like employers. So you had to contribute by the 14th. If you did not, you're charged surcharge and interest. Yeah? The nature of your business is up and down, is when you get the job, but you were expected to pay every month religiously on a fixed amount. In addition to that, there are some persons who are employees, but they're also self-employed, and you couldn't pay both. And I've seen cases where what the person made from their self-employment far surpassed what they made as an employee. But once you're an employee, you could only pay as an employee. So that also was a shortcoming. But guess what? From our consultations, we've listened and we've decided, you know what? We're going to change all of that. So we now have removed the requirement to pay at the end of every month and the time frame. So now you pay when you have the money to pay. So if you make a windfall from January 1st, you could come in and you pay for the whole year. And you're covered for your benefits. Self-employed persons can now contribute when funds are available. Now, we also have eliminated, taken out, removed, deleted late payments. No late payments for you. It has been rubbed off. Yeah? So where it was written in pen, we put good white off on it. Nobody can take it out. No more late payments. And You're allowed to pay in lump sums. You pay, so NIS not telling you, listen, every month pay $100. No. So if you went out and you had a good day today, and whatever you required to pay for the year, you want to pay all now, you pay all right now. So you know you are covered. So you're no longer tied to this monthly payment. So now you have flex payment up to a maximum of $7,180. So whatever under that, that's a max you could pay. Because remember, there is still the insurable earnings limit. So there's a max you can pay. You can't pay more than this. Well, at least not yet. Right? Now, how it would work, when you make your payments, we would do all the internal work because we don't want you to have no headache. But internally, we would convert what you pay into contribution weeks so you could qualify for benefits. But we know all of that talk, that's internal talk, and we don't want to hurt your head with it. All we want you to know is you pay, and we would take care of the rest. And it guarantees you your benefits. And there's a minimum of $769. So annually, you cannot pay less than $769, and you cannot pay more than $71.80. All right? And self-employed persons who are also employees can now pay both. So it puts you in a better situation. Your two salaries would now be added together so you can qualify for a better benefit. So it means it puts you in a better financial position. So from July 1st, it has been implemented. So we're really appealing to our self-employed persons. You've spoken to us, you told us what you want. Now we're giving you what you want. Now come to us, let's make sure you're registered and you decide. You make the rules now. You telling us what you want to do. We're not telling you when, you telling us when. Yes? So you tell us when you want to pay, how you want to pay, you walls in. You have no forms to fill out. So no worries, nobody not telling you, look, you have to go in this and do this. No, nothing like that. You just come in, you have your NIS number, you make your payment, and we do the work. We just want you to make sure you take care of your business, you pay so that you can be covered. And that takes me to the end.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lisa Douglas. I know it's a lot of information to take in, so I would like to invite anyone who has any questions. We have a mic set up at the back of the room. You can introduce yourself and ask any questions that you would like.
My name is Henry Steele. My question is, you said that the seventh actuary review was in 2002, recommended that the age be increased to 65. We're now in 2023. Why did it take so long for the age to be increased to 65?
All right, I'm going to invite the...
Good afternoon. And let me commend my colleague, Mrs. Douglas, for an excellent job. I think give her another round of applause. So perfect question. And let me tell you what is the process, right? The process is this. The actuarial report is a report for the government of Grenada. The report does not even belong to the NIS, right? So when the report comes to the NIS, however, we write the government and say, we have received the 13th actual review. These are the specific recommendations, and the National Insurance Board recommend that the government implement these recommendations. And in every case, in every of the reviews, from the first review to the 13th review, the National Insurance Board, under the signature of the chairman, always write the government of Grenada and says, these are the recommendations. We suggest, we recommend that you implement them. Right? And what our colleagues have said, and what we have said consistently, is that in every case, from 2002 to 2013, the government has ignored those recommendations. Right? And we have said consistently, and Mrs. Douglas said it today, that our policymakers have failed the National Insurance Board. Right? They have failed the country, correct? But we are happy to report, right? We are happy to report that in this case, right, this government has said, we have listened to you, we have seen the review, we understand the state of the National Insurance Fund, and therefore we are with you, and we are going to implement the recommendations of the 13th review. So we are happy for that.
Any other questions?
Just one slight correction here. Right? In the case of the self-employed person, you can pay more than you can pay more than a maximum. Right? So one slight correction. And if you pay more than the maximum, it rolls into the next year. And therefore you have less to pay for the next year. And you can pay less than the minimum, but if you pay less than the minimum, you do not qualify for any benefits. Right? So if you pay less than the 769, it's fine. The short-term benefits. If you pay less than the 769, it's fine, but you wouldn't qualify for the short-term benefits. But you can pay more. So just one slight correction.
Yes, good afternoon. Afternoon. You talked about if no action was taken, that the fund was going to be depleted by 35? So the changes that you implemented, could you expound on how that would turn things around and at what point we'll start seeing an upward trend?
Go back, and then you'll come forward. Right. All right, good. So what this chart here shows is that if you implement just one of the activity or one of the changes, there is no fundamental movement in extending the life of the fund. Right? So if you implement the increase in the retirement age, it makes a difference, but not significant. If you increase the contribution rate by itself, it makes a difference. You get a couple of years, but not significant. But when you implement all of the changes together, Max, right, when you implement all of the changes together, the life of the fund as is now, whereas it is projected to go to zero in 2035, it will be extended to 2056. So you get a significant movement in the life of the fund when you implement all of the changes together. Right? And we are in this particular position because we have done nothing for 40 years of the N.I.S. Right? We have done stuff, but we've cherry-picked the things that we wanted to do. So we increase the pension ever so often, etc., because that is good. People would like that. But the tough decisions, we never made them.
Any further questions?
Yeah, pleasant good evening. My name is Wallace Collins. Just a few questions that I have to ask. If I do not want the reduced pension, up to what age do I have to work to get the full pension? Okay, example, if I'm turning 60 in 2026, up to what year do I work for full pension?
Repeat the question.
If I do not want a reduced pension, okay, as what this is saying, up to what age do I have to work to get a full pension? And I'll give you an example. I'm going to turn 60 in 2026. Up to what year do I have to work in order to get full pension?
Okay, in 2026, the retirement age will be 63. Right? Good?
Yep.
So if you turn 60 in 2026, right, you could opt to wait, right, or you could opt to take your pension at that particular point in time. If you take the pension at 60, right, you would take a 15% reduction. Yeah.
So if I choose reduced pension, do I migrate to full pension at any point in time?
No, right? No. So you can't take it reduced conveniently for a period, and then when you get to the age, you bump it up. No. Once you're on the reduced pension, you are on the reduced pension for life. Right? But
so
yeah.
you're saying,
But let's
yeah. Go ahead. Okay. So that leads me to another question. For example, with this act up, it seems to be coming 1st of January 2024. Right. We are in July of 2023. You have organizations, companies who have started recruitment process for persons who knew that was going 10 years ago next year. How comfortable we feel to start to implement this 1st of January, and you have already done advanced your recruitment process, training has begun. How do you tell an employer that sorry, it's up to you to decide whether or not that you want to employ somebody still? I think the time is unreasonable for particularly big companies who have retirement, number of persons who are retiring within a specific period of time. I think this 5 months period is just insufficient time for them to prepare for that transition in 2020.
Okay. But we hear you, eh? We hear you very well. But we say it is not 5 months, right? Let me do my math.
Yes.
Right?
It might be less than 5 months.
No. We say it is 5 years, right? We say it is 5 years. We have been talking about this issue since 2019. In fact, in 2019, we were here.
You were in the same place, I agree.
In the same place, right? And you were here also.
Correct.
We were in Petit Martinique. We were in St. Andrews, right? We were in St. David's. We were in every parish in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We did 38 different presentations talking to this issue. And in fact, when you walk the street, when you go and drink a beer, people actually thought that the retirement age was increasing. In fact, we have people who delay their pension and don't apply for the N.I.S. pension on time now because they are of the view that the retirement age increased. And when we did it in 2019, we had overwhelming public support, both for the increase in the retirement age and also for the increase in the contribution rate. And it is why we, as as administrators are very disappointed that it did not happen in 2019. So it is not 5 months, it is 5 years.
No, it's 5 months because it's only become law when it's black and white, when the Governor General is acting to Governor General.
Yes.
So we can
Yes.
speak for 15 years and it
Yes.
the same thing.
Yes.
So you can't, it's unfair for the ordinary man to be blamed, to be chastised for talking. Okay, you can only act when it goes to Parliament and the Governor General gives the blessings.
Correct.
So within that time, between July, and that's why I'm saying 5 months, it could be less than 5 months, because the process, Parliament may reach on Thursday to do the same act, to discuss it. However, Ms. Douglas said that consultation, I wonder if consultation is not just a checkbox, because if next week Thursday is Parliament, the time it goes through the 2 stages, the time it goes through the Governor General.
So who is disadvantaged? Who are you saying is disadvantaged?
The disadvantage is the persons who already plan to retire in January, and now you're telling me, well, I can go, but I'm getting 5% off on my pension.
Right, 5% less. Right, but let's be clear, right? Let us be clear. I can take any person inside here, right? And we ask you to call the office and let's do the work for you. Any person inside here, right? And run your pension, what your pension is likely to be, okay? And show you that on average, you get back all of the monies you pay to the NIB and your employer paid to the NIB in 2.5 years. So let us be clear that the pension that the NIS pay is extremely expensive. And whereas you are paying 6 and 7% towards your pension, when we do the actual calculation and you calculate what is referred to as an internal rate of return, you actually should be paying 19% for that pension. And we're not calculating the other benefits that we pay you, the maternity benefit, the unemployment benefit, etc., the other range of 14 benefits. So that benefit, hold on, that benefit that you are talking about being reduced by 5%, right? You getting all of that back in 2.5 years, even with the reduction. With the reduction, you might get it back in 3 years. And what is happening after the 3 years? After the 3 years, when you get back all of the money that you are entitled to, that you paid and your employer paid, where is the money coming from? Yeah? So that is my answer to your question. It is not unfair to you because you are getting a benefit that you are not entitled to in quantity. So even with the reduction that you are going to get with a 5% or 10% reduction, that benefit, right, is still much more than you are supposed to get. And we can do the maths, to anybody inside here, any person in the country, and show you. Actually, we did it for a gentleman in Corinth, right? He came into the presentation, he was hyper, right? Very hyper, and Mrs. Douglas took him to the back, right? After I made the same point, showed him his calculation, and after that, he said he wanted to do a testimonial for the N.I.S.
But, Mr. Cromwell, there is a flip side to that as well, eh? There's a flip side to it.
Yes.
That there are persons who play thousands of dollars into the fund that die before 60.
But yes.
All right, so there's a flip side to it.
Yeah, but, you know.
So what do they get?
Yeah, but.
They do not have any children under 18.
Yeah, but if you die.
Right, so there's a flip side to it.
Right, yeah.
The other question I want to ask, when the actual is done, how do we factor in population death and death rate and birth rate?
Yeah,
because Ms. Douglas is speaking of 2035 and 2050. What after, when we reach 2050, what are we saying to the generation? We all gone by that time. What are we going to say to them at 2050?
Well, let me
or what the population rate should be at 2050 to avoid that generation to have an increase in the pension in the rate of pension.
Okay, just repeat the question so I can be clear what you're asking. What is the question?
So I'm asking, well, maybe 2 questions. Does the actual review factor in the death rate and the birth rate to determine exactly the percentage that who are living now should be paying?
Right.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to find out.
Okay. Yes, totally. All right. I mean, very detailed work, right? But debt, migration, the performance of the economy, right? The performance of the institution, administrative performance, etc. Right? So very detailed work, very detailed modeling. So all of that is factored in. Right? So they get a lot of information from the Central Statistical Office and plugs it into the model that they use. Yeah. So nothing is left unturned.
The pension age, can you explain this a bit? Ms. Douglas just run through that slide very quickly, because I'm thinking here that you're saying a pensioner can lose up to 30% of his pension. Depends on what time he leaves.
Yeah, that's only when you get past 2029. That's only when you're in 2029. When we get to 2029, the retirement age will be 65, right? So if you take it at 64, you will get 6% reduction. If you take it at 63, you'll get 12%, etc., etc. But that's only when you get past 65. But what we have seen, the reality of the situation is, and I'll tell you, from the N.I.S. standpoint, right? People always say, I plan to retire, I want to retire, etc., right? But the reality of the situation is, in a lot of cases, when the time comes for retirement, people don't want to go. People actually want to work longer. Some of our workers who had to retire because we have a retirement age of 60, right, actually left and worked elsewhere. And they were very capable, right? We had a driver, the best chauffeur in Grenada, Sam, right? And Sam, when he left at 60, Sam could have worked for another 40 years. Right? Strong, young, you understand? Well, I never miss a worker like Sam, right? Because Sam actually, for me, was like my children's second daddy, right? Did everything for the, when I'm in a meeting, he would go and pick them up, etc. But, and Sam could have worked easily. Look at Cindy and there, right? Lisa. Sam could have worked for the next 10, 15, 20 years easily. And so he left, fully capable of working healthy, strong, and go and work with somebody who would have allowed him to work. So people, and it's because people are living longer and people are healthier, right? Somebody at 60 now, a 60-year-old now is not a 60-year-old many years ago. Because of medicine and improvements in technology, everybody exercising, who not going to the gym, who walking, etc. Just more awareness on health issues. Right? I mean, not everybody, of course, because you have some people who at 60, they really can't do anything. But on average, people are living longer, healthier lives, and people want to work beyond 60. At least have the choice. And then for mortgages and so forth, is also useful, because now I can spread it for a longer period, and I can pay less on my mortgage. And if you forget you want to build a house in a younger life, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you realize, oh, I need to build a house. You have a look at that.
Mr. Kamal, before you go, one other thing. Can you just clarify, just explain the 60-61? So, for example, someone who is expected to retire next year. You're saying that they have until they could retire at 60 with a reduced pension or continue until 61. Agree? So those who are 60 will be 61. When will they be entitled to retire?
No. So go back. So next year, the retirement age
is 61.
61, right? So you can take it at 60 and take your 5%.
So when you're 61, you're done.
Right?
Go home.
Yeah, when you're 61.
Right, you're gone.
Well, you retire at 60.
Right.
But you take the 5% reduction. You get the 5% reduction, you're getting your pension.
And you're still working.
Well, if you could continue to work, because some people may want to work, but if you continue to work, you have to earn less than $3,000 to continue to get an N.I.S. pension.
Oh.
Right? Yeah.
So anything above 3,000, you're not qualified.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we close, I'd like to know if there's any further questions. All right, thank you very much for your thought-provoking questions. I'll now like to invite Ms. Alvicia Pope to do the vote of thanks.
A pleasant good evening, everyone. We have now come to the end of our session this evening, and I know based on the presentation given and the questions asked, we are all more well informed on all the changes that have been implemented by the National Insurance Board and soon to be. We could not have done this session today without a few key persons that I would like to make mention of. Ms. Colleen St. Bernard for her prayers, Ms. Asha James for the warm welcome and opening remarks, Ms. Lisa Douglas for such an enlightening and informative presentation, Mr. Max Godden, our moderator, for ensuring the session runs efficiently, the Mermaid Hotel for allowing us to use this venue this evening to have the consultation, TNR Communication for online viewership, and finally, a very special thanks to you, our valuable stakeholders, for being here with us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and feedback. We appreciate your contribution and trust the information provided here today has shed some clarity on why it is important for the changes that are happening now and the future changes to be made. Thank you all once again. Do have a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. We've now come to the end of the proceedings, but I would like to invite you to the back where we have some refreshments and also some agents where you can register for the N.I.S. web portal and also to give your email address if you would like to receive the presentations. We also have some tokens at the back if you would like, some N.I.S. bags and bottles. So, thank you very much.